Hazards are everywhere. Some of us try to avoid it, others can't get out of the way. Every day we encounter new dangers such as injuries, dangerous goods, weather, mistakes, and unsafe decisions. There's a lot of ways to prevent and handle these situations. Sometimes it feels just short of a miracle, because every day we live, we face 1,000 ways to PSI. In Norse mythology, the hammer of Thor was able to strike as firmly as wanted and never failed, capable of leveling mountains in a single blow. For Hammerhead Neil, hammers were also great for tight hose connections when short on time. Arriving to site, Chris spots Neil in his familiar fashion thundering away with a hammer to attach his hose connection fittings. Deciding to step in for a safety conversation, Chris will discover Neil's hose connection isn't the only thing that's stubborn and unresponsive.
Excuse me, Neil.
What?
How's it going? I'm Chris.
That's nice.
I'm an HSC advisor for Conoco. Come over here for a second?
No, I gotta get this done, man. This consultant's on my I'm sorry, I don't have time for this.
I'll look after that for you. And just come over here and have a talk with me, please.
If I have nothing better to do all day long than sit around with... I'm always Bulldog. I don't work for, you know...
You're out on a Conoco location, though, and I have a couple concerns about what you've been doing.
Come on, I don't have time for this, man.
I see you're putting the hoses on and you're using the hammer, and...
Well, you tell me how else am I gonna get them on? They need a little bit of force every now and then, for crying out loud. That's the way we do it, man. Like, come on, these fittings get tight, you know, especially when they're newer hoses, and you need a hammer to hammer them on.
You got any kids or anything?
I don't have time to talk about my kids. I got too many kids. That's why I'm out here busting my chops, man.
You know, having an open and active PSI conversation requires the participation of both the speaker and the listener. Sometimes our tendency might be to avoid engaging in conversations with others. We may feel insulted, embarrassed, stressed, or just short on time while trying to finish a task. But the sad reality is that if you ignore or react harshly to someone trying to have a PSI conversation with you, it will create an environment of silent consent, where people will allow you to continue a practice they know is unsafe. This will not only increase the chance of you getting hurt, but also put your friends and colleagues in danger as well. In addition, this type of behavior is really counter to the type of culture we want to foster, one of respect, openness, and continuous improvement.
Well, what do you need the hammer for to tighten those up? I mean, you should be able to do them by hand, no?
Oh, it's easier just to do it with a hammer. You know, bigger hammer, easier the job. You know what they say, eh? You know, if the job doesn't get done with one hammer, just get a bigger hammer. It'll go on.
Well, have you ever stopped and taken a thought? What do you think might happen if that hammer slips or if your hand gets in the way there?
Man, I've been doing this for years, okay? Look at me. Look at this face. Does it look like I've had a hammer slip? It gets the job done quick, and that's what these guys are paying me for. They don't want me fooling around with chintzy. They want the job done, so I do it as fast as I can.
With the constant pressure to perform his tasks on schedule, Hammerhead Neil has no time for delays or chatty Cathys.
Do you have any kids, Neil? Is there a wife or anything?
Yeah, I do, okay? But why don't you go bother somebody who has time for this nonsense, okay? Have a nice life and let me do my thing.
Striking down Chris's warnings with Thor-like thunder will eventually only lead to hitting the Neil on the head instead of nailing the precise point of Chris's PSI conversation. There's nothing worse than a difficult hose connection when in a battle against time, especially when it seems to happen day after day. But for Hammerhead Neil, if there were two ways to fix a problem and one involved a hammer, well, the choice was obvious. Chris once again spots Neil up to his usual shenanigans. Despite Neil's history to listen down instead of listen up, Chris decided to approach Neil again out of concern for his safety.
Excuse me, Neil.
What?
How's it going?
Jesus,
come over here and have
Murphy.
a talk with me.
So, like, who are you again?
I'm Chris, an HSC advisor for Conoco.
And that is what to me?
The reason I was coming over here, Neil, you know, over the past couple of seasons, we've had a few incidents with fellows getting hit in the mouth there with the back hoses while they're taking them off. So, just coming over here to check up
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I can appreciate that. I can spare a couple minutes of my time.
Oftentimes, in the day-to-day rush, it's easy to forget that when someone approaches us to have a PSI conversation, they're just reaching out to help prevent a potential injury or incident. So just remember to be open and relaxed, as a PSI conversation is not about confrontation. If we can all agree to accept and actively take part in PSI conversations, we will foster a culture where we all watch out for one another, reducing the potential for injuries and incidents. Active participation in PSI conversations is recognizing that safety is a personal responsibility for us all. The actual PSI conversation itself is basically made up of 5 key questions. These questions are designed to be open-ended and involve the other person really to lead the conversation in the process of recognizing any potential dangers, along with possible solutions and proper procedures to help manage that risk and keep everyone involved safe. So, the questions include, number 1, how can you or others get hurt? Number 2, what kind of injury could happen? Number 3, how can you and others avoid getting hurt? Number 4, what if something unexpected happens? And number 5, what have you done to prevent you and your coworkers from getting hurt? And by asking these open-ended questions, it encourages an objective answer, using the person's own knowledge and feelings, as opposed to you coming across that you're just telling them what to do.
How do you think your wife and your kids might feel if you come home and you're all banged up after you catch a hammer in the teeth? Is there another way you might be able to approach this job?
Sometimes we're put under tough time restraints, but, you know, taking the time, I guess, to make sure that everything's good before you go.
If you run into a busier string, do you think maybe if I talk to our supervisor out here and had him give you a little bit of prep time on your equipment, do we have an agreement?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Yeah.
Keep the hose fittings cleaned off and operating smoothly?
That works for me, man. Thanks.
Right,
Have a great day now.
You too.
Hammerhead Neil was a man on the move, with no time for anyone's finger-wiggling tips.
Okay, so and I have a couple concerns about what you've been doing.
Oh, come on. I don't have time for this, man.
But once Neil decided to take his earmuffs off and shoot the breeze, he realized that Chris wasn't just ear hustling or wasting his time, but instead watching out for his safety, transforming this Hammerhead to be all PSIs and ears.